Friends, welcome to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. While looking around the restaurant for the customer I was supposed to meet, I saw my ex-wife Susan. She was sitting with a slightly overweight middle-aged man. It could be said that he had once been in good shape, but good food and time had affected his physique. Susan was sitting right next to him, and you could tell she was in all her glory. Everything about the guy screamed money. As I stood in the foyer and looked at her, a flood of memories came flooding back to me. It's been 3 years since our divorce, and emotions have surfaced again, as if it were yesterday. That's how I got to where I was standing today, looking inside instead of sitting next to her. However, as you will see, her wish was fulfilled. All my problems started when I had to come to Albany to meet with a client. I decided to do it overnight so that I wouldn't have to drive back for a long time. An hour after my car ride, my client called me and said that his wing was broken, but he was fine. He apologized for the late cancellation, and I told him there was no problem. We can reschedule the meeting. Anyway, I really didn't feel ready for the extra 2 hours of driving ahead of me. I told him that I would do my best and return home to have a romantic dinner with my beloved wife. I wanted to surprise her. An hour and a half later, I was finally driving down my street. The first thing I noticed was that there were 3 strange cars parked in the driveway. My wife invited her girlfriends when I was out of town to keep her company, so it didn't really matter to me. I parked my car on the street. I went into the house thinking that everything was fine. The first thing I noticed wrong was 4 sets of clothes on the floor of my living room. I froze just at the moment when I heard my wife scream. It wasn't a cry of help me. It was a cry of use me harder, which I knew well. My heart sank, and I realized that my wife was making love to someone else. My whole world was destroyed. I didn't want to go upstairs, but I knew I had to. When I got to the top of the stairs, I heard my wife let out a primal scream, and then it suddenly became muffled. I quietly peeked out from behind the door jamb of my bedroom and realized why. I had never liked Jeff, and now I knew why. Sue, you're a great cheater, and I like to love you in every hole. By the way, thanks for helping me with 2 of my favorite clients. I can tell they love your slutty body as much as you love using it, Jeff praised her. This asshole pimped my wife for his business clients. All 3 of them started using my wife as their personal toy. They gave her everything they had and called her all sorts of humiliating names. She seemed to become even wilder from such treatment, and they made love to her even more. I've never seen her act like that in the 10 years we've been married. Although I felt that Jeff's chosen name Cheater was the most appropriate for her. I backed away quietly, but they were so busy that they didn't even notice me. I quietly went downstairs and went to my office. I found my digital video camera, and it has some battery power left. There was an old vacation cassette in it, and there was still some space left. I didn't want to make a feature film. I just documented my wife's actions for my lawyer. I quietly went back to my bedroom door and started recording on video. I got good pictures of my wife's face as well as everyone else's. I only shot 10 minutes of video because that was all I could take. Now some men may find it exciting, but not me. The whole scene saddened me. I went limp and felt betrayed. Seeing my wife become a cheater for other men was almost unbearable for me, and I went downstairs to calm down and think soberly. I went to my office and took my gun out of the safe, removing the safety catch. I'm not a violent person, but I was in the mood to fire a few bullets if they started acting stupid. Then I went into the living room and took all the car keys and wallets from the trousers that the men had left on the floor of my living room. I went outside and flattened all their tires, including Sue's car. When I returned inside, I had a smile on my face that a Grinch would envy. I started to form a great plan, and I knew it would work if Sue took her cell phone. I noticed it on the bedside table in the bedroom when I was recording a video. I got my camera ready, went behind the stairs, and quickly dialed Sue's cell phone number. It rang several times, and I got her answering machine. She knew I would call around this time, so I called back every 2 minutes until she finally answered. She must have told them to be quiet because a pin could be heard falling in the house. "Hi, Bobby, how's Albany?" Sue asked, out of breath. I could also hear the soft chuckles of the men in the room. "You look out of breath." "Are you all right?" I asked her with feigned concern in my voice. "Yes, I had to run up the stairs to the bedroom to answer the mobile phone call." She quickly covered herself. "Well, my client canceled the meeting, and I'm going to be home in just a few minutes. I was wondering if you'd like to go out for dinner," I asked her in a flat voice. Inside, I was crazier than I had ever been in my life. "Are you coming home now?" "What is it?" she asked in a nervous voice. "That sounds great. I just need to get ready, baby. See you." She said it all very quickly and hung up before I could answer. I laughed to myself because I knew what was going to happen in just 1 minute, and sure enough, 4 completely naked people started coming down my stairs into the living room. All the men got dressed in record time, and Sue also got dressed and put her clothes in order. All the men ran out at the same time, and Sue put on some shoes and a jacket with them. She went to the door and looked out, hoping they would leave before she went outside. If she hadn't been so excited, she would have noticed my car parked on the street in front of our house. All the men started shouting at her at the same time, and she went out on the porch to listen to what they were talking about. At that very moment, I slammed the front door and locked it behind her. My wife just saw my face when I was closing the door and tried to look in the side window and speak to me with a pleading voice. The time for talking is over. All the other men returned to my porch and started banging on my front door for a few minutes. I knew they wanted their wallets and keys. I called 911 and reported people trying to break into my house. The dispatcher said that one of my neighbors had just called her. I gave her my name and address. Just 2 minutes later, a policeman showed up at my house. I waited for the police to question my wife, then I opened the door and went out to the 2 policemen who were at the scene. "Officers, these men raped my wife and I want them all arrested," I told the police. This caused an instant reaction from the men. They all immediately started shouting, "I was invited. She wanted it herself. I didn't rape anyone, and she wanted it from all of us." Everyone, including me, looked at Sue for an answer. She lowered her eyes and avoided meeting my gaze. In a low voice full of shame, she said, "I invited these men to my house. I made love to them and no one raped me. I did it of my own free will." All the men seemed relieved that they were not facing rape charges. At about this time, 2 more police cars arrived. At my request, they wrote down the names of everyone for their report. Then the senior policeman said to me, "If your wife invited these men to your house and they are all over the age of 18, there is little we can do for you. I would recommend consulting or something like that." He said that while looking at my wife like she was a piece of shit on his shoe. I told the police to call a taxi and that Mrs. Thomas would not be allowed to return to the house tonight. One of the guys called a taxi because he found that all their tires were flat. They also tried to accuse me of taking their wallets and keys, but I told the police that I had no idea what they were talking about. I turned around and walked back to the porch. Sue stayed with them until the taxi arrived. I was just standing on the porch with daggers flashing in my eyes. My wife tried to come up on the porch and talk to me, which was a brave thing to do at that moment. If she had known how angry I was and that I had a gun with me, she might have run the other way. "Bobby, I'm so sorry that—" She tried to say something, but I cut her off immediately. "You broke my heart, and I'll never forgive you. Jeff called you a cheater, and I think that's appropriate. From now on, I will call you a cheater, and I will never use your real name again. If you ever need to talk to me again, do it through Ted." And with that last comment, I entered the house and locked the door, leaving her standing there. She ran back to the group, crying, and Jeff tried to hug her. She pushed him away, and for some reason I felt a little better about it. My good mood quickly evaporated when I returned to my bedroom. The whole room smelled of love, and there was liquid on my pillow. For some reason, it just pissed me off, and I started trashing the whole room. I took the mattress and threw it on the lawn in front of the house. I went to the garage and got my toolbox. I started to take the bed apart and scatter it in pieces on the lawn in front of the house along with the mattress. I went back into the bedroom and picked up Sue's cell phone from the floor. I checked the list of her phone numbers and messages. Of course, she had disgusting emails, photos, and even a few videos of some guys I never knew making love to her in all holes. However, judging by the photos, she knew them very well. I started looking for trash bags to put all her clothes in, and I had to laugh at myself. I was attentive to her, but those days are over. I took all the drawers from our bedroom downstairs and put the contents of each drawer in a separate pile on the front lawn. Then I took care of all her extra things in the guest room. That's where I got my next surprise. I took all the drawers out of the guest room and onto the lawn, just like I did with Sue's bedroom stuff. The last bottom drawer was stuck and did not open until the end. I wasn't in the mood, so I took out my anger on the dresser drawer. I pulled very hard and heard the plastic crack. I pulled out the drawer and tried to open it slowly. It opened immediately, and I was able to see what the cause of the problem was. There were 7 or 8 DVDs under the drawer. I broke one of the plastic cases, but the disc was still in good condition. My heart sank again as I looked at the discs. I didn't think I could feel any worse, but I did. Going down the stairs, I read the titles on the discs, and I was not happy about it. I went into the living room and put everything on the shelves for a review. The first was Sue and her best friend Sarah at Sarah's house. Sue helped out at her Avon parties every Tuesday and Thursday. At least that's what I thought. They actually made love to some guys at her house. For several hours, Sue and Sarah engaged in all kinds of sexual acts with several partners. I started crying, but stopped when I saw the last two discs. The first was how Sue loved her tennis instructor. During the lessons I paid for, in all holes. She went there every Saturday and always came back too tired to make love on a Saturday night. Now I really knew why. On the second disc, Sue was making love at her workplace at a boardroom table with Jeff, her boss, and Jeff's boss, Bill Evans. Bill was a big shot in society, and his picture always appeared in the newspaper at one event or another. I took out a large envelope and put in it a cell phone, CDs, and a cassette that I had shot earlier. I planned to give the entire envelope to my lawyer and best friend, Ted Worth. We've been friends for as long as I can remember. He was one of the only two people in the world I really trusted. The other didn't matter anymore. I looked at the computer desk and saw Sue's computer. I pressed the space bar and it came to life. I made copies of everything that was on the computer. Every file, emails, photos, and videos that I copied. It took about an hour to copy everything, and then I sat down and started browsing my wife's computer. There were videos of her love, exactly the same as on the discs I found. I found photos of her that you can only see on websites. Then I started reading her emails sent in about 6 months. She tried to hide them under some stupid program file name, but I found them. She had several letters from Jeff and several other men. The rest was between her and Sarah. They were only written off last week when I read one that literally almost killed me. I thought about using my gun, but realized she wasn't worth it. I had to be strong. The only email that upset me so much was from Sue to Sarah. Sarah asked her why she didn't leave me and become single again. She also asked Sue to describe perfectly what she wants from her future husband. That's what she replied in response. Sarah, I don't want to do anything with him right now. Bobby is as loyal as he is stupid. I really feel that it's only a matter of time before he finds out about my secret lifestyle. He's not completely stupid. It's just that love is blind. He's been blooming a bit lately. His belly is getting bigger every day. Sometimes it's hard to be attracted to him when I compare him to the guys we use. I also hate beards and mustaches. Because of this, he looks, I do not know, somehow disgusting. I guess I really loved him once, but the worries of the last few years are too strong to give up on them. His best friend is a lawyer, and if he intervenes, it can cause difficulties. Jeff and Bill from work hint at a promotion and a pay raise, also including a rise in their pants. I'm laughing. I also want at least a house and a car. If I do everything right, I can also get a little alimony every month into the bargain. I'm looking forward to our party on Tuesday. I have to be there if I can still walk after the injury I got in tennis. I'm laughing. God, Tony is a car. Make sure I get the video from last Thursday. It was the first time I had worked out with so many guys at the same time. As for the man of my dreams, I want him to be well off, loyal, manageable, and dumb. He should kiss my ass anytime I want and still ask me which buttock. I'm laughing. I don't care about the bedroom department as long as he doesn't have the money. I'm laughing. I can get everything I need somewhere outside the house. Sometimes it seems almost too simple. Damn, Bobby's home now. I have to go. See you Tuesday. Call me. Sue, best friend. I've read this letter so many times that I could almost memorize it. The words disgusting and the last few years really hurt me more than words can express. Is this really how she felt about me? Was I so blind with love that she cheated on me for more than 2 years? Right after that, I went to bed and fell asleep on the couch. I woke up early and called work. I really didn't sleep well and mostly tossed from side to side. After claiming to be sick at work, I called my best friend Ted Worth. He was my friend at first, but he was also my lawyer on most issues. Mary picked up the phone. She was Ted's secretary, and I've known her almost as long as I've known Ted. That morning, I asked for an urgent meeting, and she said he would be in court all day. Mary, tell Ted to meet me at his office in an hour. If he bothers you with any shit, mention the name Tammy Brown. This should get his attention. I'll see you in an hour, I told her, and hung up before she could answer. I started to get dressed, and then my cell phone rang. I looked at the number because I didn't want to talk to Sue at all. It was an unfamiliar number, so I picked up the phone in case it was Ted calling back from somewhere. Hello, Mr. Thomas. This is Bill Evans from Susan's office. If possible, I would like to talk to you about the troubles that occurred last night at your house. If you would consider it necessary to meet with me at my office today, I would like to help clarify the situation for all interested parties. I wasn't sure if he knew I had a video of him making love to his wife at his workplace, but I knew he was worried about two of Jeff Davis's big clients. Besides, my wife and Jeff were valuable to him. I don't think he wanted to lose his valuable employees. I also knew that he was worried about the negative publicity for his company and for himself personally. Mr. Evans, I have an important meeting this morning, but I promise that I will call you back at this number before noon to arrange something for today. I reassured him in response. My tone was even, and I said it as if he had brought me to my senses. God, he was in for a big surprise. Walking out the door, I could still see what looked like a really weird yard sale. The broken bed and all of Sue's clothes were still there. One of my elderly neighbors gave me a little wave, and a funny expression appeared on his face. I knew I was going to be a 9-day miracle, as they say in the news business. It was a suburb. I drove to the city center and had a snack. I swallowed some food and went straight to Ted's office. Mary made me a cup of coffee, lots of cream and no sugar. We really knew each other for a very long time. Holy shit, Bobby. I do not know what you have on Ted, but I mentioned that name, and he told me to cancel all meetings for today. I could use a month off if you want to tell me who Tammy Brown is, she added jokingly. You'll have to ask Ted. By the way, where is he? I asked her. He said he'd be right there. He needed to reschedule his meeting with the judge for today's court session, she told me. Just at that moment, he came in the door. Holy shit, Bobby. Tammy Brown, you must be in a lot of trouble to mention that name to me. Come into the office and let's talk. Mary, don't put me through to anyone right now. Ted said it all very quickly. I took my coffee and he closed the door so we could talk. I told him about the events of the previous evening and what I had learned about Sue's new lifestyle. Then I gave him an envelope full of the things I had packed, and he finally spoke. He listened to my story and never interrupted me. I could see the legal wheels turning in his head as I recalled the events of last night. I also told him about Bill Evans's request for a meeting today. Well, Bobby, as they say, first things first. I've known you for a long time and I know you're crushed. Is there any chance that you'll make peace with Sue? He asked me. Ted, if we were talking about Katie, Ted's wife, and you saw these videos and read the emails, you'd dump her in the blink of an eye. I want to get divorced, but I also want to cause serious damage. I'm not going to go quietly into the night, I confessed to him. Okay, first we'll sue Tony and the Ace Tennis Club. We can't touch Sarah because she's just a good friend who plays with Sue. Sue's company is a completely different matter. Secondly, I plan to sue 2 clients who were in your house as well as their companies. We are also pursuing Jeff Davis, Bill Evans, and their company, he declared. It might get nasty before it gets better, Bobby, he told me. I don't care if I have to stand outside and use my fists. I'm going to make these people pay for using me through Sue, I told him with anger in my voice. Okay, Bobby, tell me again what Bill Evans wanted, and we'll start with that. Ted told me. We discussed several different options, and I liked the last one the most. A full frontal attack on Sue's company was what sounded best. I had an ace up my sleeve with a video of Davis, Evans, and Sue in their boardroom. Ted told me that as Sue's bosses, they controlled her position. It can also lead to serious imprisonment. I liked the way it sounded. Ted also hinted that as soon as Bill Evans finds out what we have on him, his attitude will change and I will be offered some money. I told him that if it was less than $2 million, he could kiss my ass. I'll tell you what, Ted, let it be $2.5 million. I've seen your legal fees before, I told him with a laugh. Come tonight at 19 o'clock and Katie will cook a delicious dinner for both of us. I think you could use a break from home, he demanded. I called Bill Evans back and made an appointment for 2 p.m. Immediately after that, Mary poked her head into the office. Ted, there's a call for you on line 1, she told him. Mary, I told you, no calls, he said, and he was really angry. I'm sorry, Ted, but this is Susan. She wants to talk to you and I thought you might want to answer, Mary continued. I'm sorry, Mary. It's been a long day and it's just beginning. Does she know Bobby's here? He asked her. Not that I know, Ted, she said. Tell her I'll talk to her in a minute, he said more gently as Mary hurried out into the waiting room. Well, I bet she's already discovered that her cell phone, computer, and all the DVDs are missing. I bet she got mad because I dumped all her shit on the front lawn along with our bed, I told him. Wow, you really had a busy evening. Let me talk and don't interfere in the conversation. As your lawyer, I need to clarify a few things right now, he hinted to me, pressing connect. I started to hear a one-sided conversation, but I could almost make out what she was saying to Ted without even hearing her words. Hi, Susan, it's Ted. Yes, I've already talked to him. Bobby is a great guy, and my friend. I thought that of all people, you would be the one to cover his back and not stab him with a knife. No excuses, Sue, I'm not in the mood. Yes, I'm going to represent him. He has very strong arguments. You know it's going to be unpleasant, don't you? I'll talk to him, but you've crushed a man who's always been loyal to you and loved you to death. I don't think he cares what you think. My best advice is to find yourself a good lawyer. You'll need one. Yes, Bill Evans has an appointment for 14 o'clock, although I don't think you should be there. Listen to me, Sue. If you even show up at the outer door of the office and eavesdrop through the glass, I'll tell Bobby to leave, and all hell will break loose. Better wait it out and control yourself today. I know he put your stuff out on the lawn, but just like you can invite strangers into your bedroom, he can throw your stuff out of the house onto the front lawn. To be honest, I'm surprised he didn't shoot anyone last night. Oh yes, he had it with him, albeit in self-defense. Remember, he thought you were raped. This was stated in the police report. I do not know, but if it was my Katie, I would be in jail right now. I think that under the circumstances, he was short-tempered. As for your computer, cell phone, and any other things that were not in the house this morning, you will have to ask the other owner of the house. Maybe he left it all on the lawn with your clothes and someone took it all away. I really can't tell. I have processed all your documents for the deposit of the house, and you both have the same rights in this house. How you decide to exercise these rights depends on each of you. Okay, I'll tell him. Right now, I would recommend that you stay there and let Bobby stay in the house until everything is sorted out. I don't think it's safe for you to be in the same house with him right now. Look, Sue, I want to punch you in the nose even now, so don't insist. Stay with Sarah and I'll be in touch. Please ask your lawyer to call me when you have one. Crying won't help you right now, Sue. Besides being his lawyer, I'm also his friend. Your tears fall on deaf ears. I can be a ruthless bastard whenever I want, and this seems to be the perfect case. I've always liked you and respected you until today. I am sorry that you will see me from a side that only my enemies and detractors see. You're not going to like this. Okay, but stay away from him and don't leave your office. He doesn't want anything to do with you right now. Goodbye. Ted finished and looked up at me. I think you heard most of the conversation, he asked me sadly. Yes, I would just like to meet her face to face again and tell her how I really feel. Although I don't think I want to go through the pain of seeing her again, at least right now, I confessed to my friend. I'll tell you what, Bobby, do 2 things for me, he asked me, instantly changing his emotional mood to a positive and optimistic one. Get these videos for me. Ted asked me to pull out of the envelope the video from last night, the video of Tony at the tennis club and the video of Sue with Mr. Davis and Mr. Evans in her office. I gave him the videos and he told me to invite Mary to have lunch with me. I looked at him strangely, and he immediately responded in kind. I think it would be better if I looked at them personally so as not to upset you all before our meeting at 14 o'clock. I don't think watching this stuff is going to do you any good right now, and I don't want you to get mad before we even meet Bill Evans. I knew he was right, and I thanked him, telling Mary the good news. She told me to take her to some expensive place if Ted pays. I laughed and we both left the building. Mary was a wonderful dinner companion, and she made me forget about all my problems for the next hour. When we got back, I heard Ted yell as we walked through the office door. We walked in and he was in a great mood, performing a festive dance at his table. This record is great, Bobby. I don't believe it. He told me. A funny and sad expression appeared on my face, and I think he finally understood why. Oh, Bobby, I'm really sorry. I didn't celebrate these videos. I know Sue really hurt you. I was only excited because of what I had just found, he confessed to me. Bobby, come here. I need you to look at something for me. Ted asked me when, following his instructions, I stood right behind him so that I could see over his shoulder. Have you watched the whole tape that Tony shot at the tennis club with Sue? He asked me. No, I've only looked at some of them. Last night I tried to go through all the records without throwing up or going out and killing someone. I told him honestly about it. Well, I have a surprise for you. Shortly before Tony and Sue finish, they begin to gather a small crowd in the men's locker room, the locker room of the tennis club. I don't want to say this, but she let the other men watching the threesome make love to her after Tony was done. I'm not telling you this to make you angry or upset, but because of this man right here. Ted said this to me, pointing at the screen on his desk. The person he was pointing at was an elderly man wrapped in a towel. He had longer gray hair and a walrus mustache. He asked me if I recognized him. Ted turned on the video playback. The only problem was that he walked right up to my wife and shoved it in her mouth. The next minute, she was surrounded by 5 more guys waiting for their turn to chat with Sue. Ted, I have no idea who this asshole is, but I guess you know, I answered him wisely. Bobby, this is for our meeting at the tennis club today at 4 p.m., he informed me. Ted was excited, and then he explained to me why. I smiled when he told me about his plan. Besides being my friend, Ted was a damn good lawyer. I was glad that he was on my side this time. We left his office to head downtown for our meeting at 2 p.m. with Bill Evans. We took with us a portable DVD player, several photos that were printed out before leaving, and several legal-looking envelopes. We entered Sue's building and went straight to Bill's office on the top floor. Sue's office was on the floor below. We waited in the waiting room until we were invited to Mr. Evans's office. Just before I entered, I felt that someone was looking at me. I looked down the hall and saw the woman disappear around the corner when she noticed me looking at her. Try to guess who it was, I told myself. I was just glad I didn't have to deal with her today. We both went into Bill's office, and it was filled with expensive furniture. In each place on the wall there was a plaque, an award, or a photo of a famous person with Bill Evans. He had a nice office, and the first thought that came to my mind was whether he had made love to Sue in this room. At this thought, I really began to dislike Mr. Evans more than ever. I introduced Ted and started doing all the talking. Hello, Mr. Evans. This is my friend Ted Worth, and he's going to be at the meeting you called today, I told Bill as we all shook hands. Mr. Thomas, Bob, I thought this was going to be a little closed. Door meeting between you and me? Mr. Evans asked me. Well, I thought I'd take Ted with me. Whatever you say to me, you can say to him, I told him. I didn't bring it up for discussion, so he accepted Ted's presence and started talking directly to me, ignoring Ted. This brought a smile to Ted's face. I knew what was going to happen, but I let Mr. Evans start first before we blew up his balloon. Bob, can I call you Bob? Bill asked me. No problem at all. I really thought it would be nice if Jeff Davis were also present at this meeting. I do not know if this is possible, but it concerns him too, I told Mr. Evans. He thought for a moment and pressed the intercom button. Julie, tell Jeff I need him in my office right now. Tell him to drop everything he's doing and come here right now. Okay, Jeff will be here any minute. In the meantime, let me tell you how sorry I am for all the trouble Jeff and Sue have caused in your life. I know last night must have been terrible, but if we work on this together, then maybe we can help everyone concerned, Bill said optimistically. What do you mean, Mr. Evans? I asked him, waiting for Jeff to arrive. I really like your wife, Sue, and... Bill said this, but was interrupted as Jeff walked right through the door. He stopped dead in his tracks and looked like he was going to turn around and leave, but Bill ordered him to sit down. He reluctantly sat down and didn't look at me at all. Bob, I just wanted to say that I really liked Sue, almost like a daughter. He started to speak when Ted interrupted him. Are you saying that you like incest too, Mr. Evans? Ted asked, completely catching him off guard. I started laughing to myself because I knew what Ted's comment was about. What did you say? Do I like incest? What the hell does that mean? He asked Ted with righteous indignation. Well, let me show you. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, Ted told them, putting the DVD player on Bill's desk. These are the frames from the video that you will see in just a minute. Ted handed them to Jeff, not Bill. Jeff's eyes grew as big as saucers, and he slowly passed them straight to Bill. The photos showed Bill and Jeff, both paired with my wife, and there was no doubt about who was in the picture or what they were doing. I even think Bill recognized his own boardroom table, which they used to use Sue on. Jeff, aren't you going to tell me that you were stupid enough to record it on video and even give out copies? Bill asked, almost at a loss for words. It was obvious that Jeff didn't have an answer at the moment, and his tongue was completely slurred. Well, Mr. Evans, that's how it's going to be. Oh, by the way, I'm Bobby's lawyer, and I'm also his friend. So let me tell you what we want and how we want you to handle it, Ted told the stunned audience. I enjoyed every minute of it. Sue will keep her job first, period. Bobby feels like she's going to need a job, and she seems to get along very well with everyone here. He said this to Bill with a slight wink. Secondly, Mr. Davis is no longer welcome here. Period. Sue stays and this guy leaves. Ted said to Bill, pointing at the stunned Jeff. Thirdly, we want you to make us a monetary offer that does not offend our intelligence. We will consider only your first offer and answer yes or no within 5 business days. We plan to go to court before the end of 2 months, and maybe even earlier if necessary. Before they could say anything, Ted pressed the play button and turned the screen around so Bill could see it. It showed both men imperiously making love to my wife over and over in their conference room. Jeff didn't need to watch, as he was in charge of the video recording. Bill just watched with his mouth open. I've seen the gears in his head working overtime. He was thinking about how to save his business, his reputation, his family life, and most importantly, his money. I knew something was going to happen soon. Jeff, when these gentlemen leave today, we will have a very serious conversation about your future employment here. I'll talk to my lawyer and see if we can come up with a figure that will make you a little happy. You both understand that this can have a very bad effect on business if it becomes known before my proposal is considered. Bill said, thinking out loud. Don't worry, Mr. Evans, we will keep your secret until we see your serious offer. However, I would not rush to dismiss Mr. Davis right now. He may have several additional copies of the videotape. He can use this as leverage if we don't do it. You and Mr. Davis can discuss this yourself. Oh, and by the way, you both could face jail time for loving an employee, which directly depends on employment and promotion. Ted told them as we both got up to leave. Ted took the DVD player back and the pictures we brought. We left when Bill and Jeff were going to have a little heart-to-heart conversation. I went over to ask Ted something, but he told me to be quiet until we went outside. I didn't notice my wife standing around the corner and trying to eavesdrop on our conversation, but he noticed. The last thing I heard was Mr. Evans shouting into Julie's intercom, "Get Sue Thomas here right now." I smiled because I knew it would be a fun meeting. Bill would soon find out that I found his DVD at our house. When we went outside, I asked him why he had given Jeff a way out, suggesting that he use his own videotape against Bill. Divide and conquer, as they always say, Ted told me. It would be better if they didn't act as a team and everyone would be on their own. So if Bill makes us a joking offer, we'll start playing against each other. I also know that Jeff and Bill have a family and they go to church. Although you can't tell from the videotapes they're shooting, they don't want to rock the family boat right now, Ted told me wisely. As I left the building, I realized that now it would be the place where my wife cheated on me, and not the proud place where my wife works. I was saddened by this thought, as well as by many others in my head. Ted brought me back to reality. Okay, let's have a beer before our next meeting at 16 o'clock at the tennis club. We both could use a drink right now, and I need to ask you something, but I'm not sure how to do it yet. Ted told me about it as we drove across town towards the tennis club. We stopped at a nice little bar restaurant next to the tennis club. Ted ordered 2 beers and started talking to me. Bobby, I think Bill Evans will make an offer, but only for a little less than $1 million. I know his legal team from another firm, and they are very good. The main character is also a realist. I will call him tomorrow and hint that an unsuccessful offer at a low price will not benefit his client's business or family life. I'll offer them to do it for about $3 million or just forget about it altogether, he told me. Next, I need to know if the offer is not accepted, which may be if I can roll Susan in the mud. I wouldn't be nice to her for the world. I can't do anything except what I know will win the case. It will be my unpleasant job as your legal representative if it comes to that. It can become ugly and very public. I will use all the tools I have to win our case. You may not like all the details that may become public about Sue, your marriage, and possibly your life. I'm going to make her look like the cheater she's become. I do not know if you have thought about it at all, Ted added at the last minute. Yes, I really thought about it. I am a more significant person than any of these people think of me. If it needs to be done, you have my blessing. But I'd like to go down the money supply route before we go crazy, I hinted to Ted. Okay, first we'll see what Bill has to offer you. However, if it sucks, I'll get all the necessary paperwork done on the same day. I will also use my newspaper contacts, as well as my friends at 3 local news stations. They would be happy to receive a few samples of the videotape or photographs, even if they have to put blue stripes in front of the juicy fragments, as they say in comedy series. Ted, you've always been there for me, and I trust your judgment. I just wish this whole mess never happened. It was more fun to be an ignorant husband than a public cuckold of a cheating wife. You still have my permission to do whatever is ever necessary. After all, I didn't start this shit, but I'm going to end it soon, I told him with anger in my voice. Okay, Bobby, no problem. Now let's discuss the material for our next meeting. This guy, Mr. Harry Rydell, is the owner of the Ace Tennis Club. This is the guy I pointed out on the video in my office. He informed me about it. He will say that adults will be adults, and he will not be able to do anything for us. Even Tony's tennis coach can be fired just for show. Then he could hire him again next week. I checked, and Tony is very popular there, especially among the ladies, if you know what I mean. But remember, Bobby, most of the men pay for the club fees and the women go too. Don't forget about this fact, because it will be important to interact with Mr. Rydell. He told me how things were going. We arrived just in time, and you could tell that Mr. Rydell and Ted didn't like each other. It was obvious from the first time Rydell spoke. Okay, Worth, you've called a meeting, so let's get this over with. I want to get this over with as soon as possible, Mr. Rydell told Ted without any kindness. Mr. Rydell, this is Bob Thomas, he said, nodding in my direction. And his wife is a member of your club. It has come to our attention that Tony Simba, your tennis instructor, had an affair with Mr. Thomas's wife. We want to know what you plan to do about this, Ted finished. He was waiting for Rydell to speak, but even I knew he would take over and send Ted in a nutshell. Listen, what two adults do in the privacy of their own home in their free time depends on them. I'm not their mother, so stop wasting my time. Harry Rydell told us everything together. As for you, Mr. Thomas, if you can't make your wife happy in the bedroom, don't come crying to me and blame me if she cuckolds your sad ass. There are many unhappy wives who go to the Ace Tennis Club. Some of them keep coming back because of the personal service they receive from my staff, if you know what I mean. Harry said that with a wink at me. I would have reached out and hit him, but Ted grabbed my wrist and whispered to me to keep my cool and follow his example. You see, Harry, you're assuming that this happened outside the club and that it happened without the full knowledge and approval of the owners. It would be wrong of you to assume that, Harry, Ted told him, pulling out a DVD player and putting it on his desk. Ted pressed play and turned the screen to Harry. It was a hint that Harry was throwing off the towel and starting to use my wife. It was obvious that he did not like the look of the video. Ted started talking before he could give Harry a chance to think. Harry, you, fully aware of this and with the complicity of your work colleague, used the services of a paying member of your club. Mrs. Susan Thomas, a married woman, even received her contributions from Mr. Thomas. He's a disgruntled customer right now. Ted told a very quiet Mr. Rydell about it. When this gets out, all the men, that is, the men who pay the dues, will want to know if their wives are making love when they are also paying the bills. I'm going to have to subpoena everyone who was in the locker room that day. I'm not sure that they, that is, those who are married, will not be too happy with you about this. Ted began to tell him in an almost fabulous tone. I also almost forgot about reasonable expectations of privacy, even when videotaping in the locker room in the first place. Harry, when I'm done with you, your club won't be the beacon of community it once was, and I also think your bank coffers will get a little lighter in the near future. Ted added for emphasis. So, what we want is for you to make us a serious offer and call me back right away. If you do this in a timely manner, it can save you a lot of inconvenience and money loss. Ted finally finished. We could see Harry Rydell considering his options. Ted, as always, you're a real asshole, but I can't argue with your logic. I'll call you tomorrow with my offer. If I pay, all the tapes will come back to me and never see the light of day. I will fire Tony of my own free will. Now, if that's all you legal blackmailers came for, get the fuck out, Harry Rydell told us as Ted smilingly picked up the DVD player and turned it off. By the way, give my regards to Tito Martinez, Ted said to Harry as he left the room. Get out of here, Worth, was all Harry could say in response. Ted laughed all the way back to the parking lot. It was a lot of fun, so now we're waiting for suggestions, Ted told me when we went to his house for a delicious homemade meal. By the end of the week, that's exactly what happened. Bill Evans offered just under $2.7 million for Sue to remain his employee. Jeff Davis was fired after he foolishly gave Bill Evans all his videotapes, and he had nothing else on him. So Bill just fired him, and there wasn't much poor old Jeff could do. I went after the two jerks who were with my wife the night I caught her with Jeff. They were two of Jeff's big clients. Well, they both didn't want any publicity either from the company's point of view or personally for themselves. So each of them offered me $1 million to leave. Harry Rydell didn't want to offer anything and told us to sue him. We did, and he lost $3 million when we were done with him. He had so many questions about who was making love to whom at the club that he lost half of his club members and had to give up all the rest. I think he thought he could get away with it, but the referee didn't like the video in the private locker rooms. He didn't like it when people made love to other people's wives either. I gave Sue a house and a car, just like she wanted, although I didn't have to pay her a cent for alimony. I've only seen her twice in court. I called her a cheater both times when I greeted her, and it made her cry. I always wondered why she was crying now, and not before she started all this shit in my life. Because it was the worst time of my life. I got more money than I ever had. I was smart and took Ted's advice. It still hurt, and I carry it with me to this day. All the events of that terrible year that I have just described came back to my mind in the blink of an eye. I didn't even notice anyone talking to me until I woke up from my nightmare in my memories and heard the restaurant manager ask if there was anything he could do to help. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, motionless, and remembered the past. I shook my head to clear my thoughts and returned to the restaurant. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about a problem that I had once. I saw the party I came to watch, so thanks again. I told the manager about it when he gave me that strange look that you usually look at an elderly person who is not at home. For a specific purpose, I went straight to my ex-wife's table. I think the surprise hit her first. The last time I was married to Susan, I was overweight, had long hair and a beard. I allowed myself to relax because of a sore knee sustained as a result of an old baseball injury. That's what I told myself back then, but I just got used to my life and my wife. Now I had short hair, was skinny due to training every other day, and my knee was fixed thanks to the money I received from Jeff and Bill's company. My costumes were expensive now, and I always tried to look good in public. I decided to speak first. You look great today, you fool. I almost forgot how good you looked, I said, trying to get her to talk. I still knew how to push her buttons, and I did it intentionally. My name is Susan, Bobby. Why don't you call me by my first name? She retaliated in anger. Hey, I didn't tell you your name, you fool. You know who did it. I just think it's appropriate. I told you 3 years ago that you broke my heart, and I will always address you by that name. I told her about it when the guy next to her started protesting and getting up from his seat. Sue pushed him back and told him not to make a scene. She cried a little and her makeup started to leak. Her date said, "Go powder your nose, Sue, and put your pretty face in order. I'll take care of this asshole for you." And with that, she stood up, looked into my eyes, and I looked back at her. I must have shown with just one look all the pain I've been carrying around for the last 3 years. She started crying even harder again. I was surprised that she had any feelings for me at all, or maybe she still felt guilty. I think it was a mix of both. I expect you to leave when I get back, she told me with tears streaming down her face. I just noticed a very large engagement ring on her ring finger when she wiped her eyes with her hand and went to the ladies' room. I take it you're Bob Thomas, Sue's ex-husband? He asked me with disgust in his voice. Yes, and you must be the cheater's new wish come true. I told him that when I saw the anger on his face. I'm Sue's finance director, and if I were you, I'd stop calling her that. He was trying to say it bravely, but I could tell he really didn't want to make a scene. I did it to talk to you alone. I have 3 questions for you, and I will disappear from your life forever. I told him about it, and it caused a questioning expression on his face. I was in your shoes once, and I just didn't want anyone else to suffer my fate again. I suppose the cheater told you that I was a shitty husband, beat her, or neglected her, or was a skirt chaser. I asked him about it and saw that this is exactly what she told him. Well, I'm not here to defend my reputation in front of you. To be honest, I don't think anything good would have come of it. I just wanted to know first, does Sarah still have her Avon parties at her house on Tuesdays and Thursdays? I asked him. Sue helps Sarah sell jewelry at her parties on Mondays and Wednesdays. It shows how much you remember. He snapped back. Good. Does she still take tennis lessons on Saturdays? I asked quickly. Sue plays ball with a racket on Sundays. Boy, you have a crappy memory because you've been married to her for so long, he said with triumph in his voice. Good. The last question. Have you ever looked under the bottom drawer of the dresser in your guest room? I asked quickly. No. Why on earth should I do that? He objected. The 3 questions I asked you are why we are no longer together. All the materials left over from the divorce are still stored in my office. Legal shit. Emails from Sarah and the cheater and hours of videotapes. I've always carried this with me for the last 3 years, so I thought you should have it. I said this while taking out a very old and folded piece of paper from my wallet. This is what the cheater wrote to Sarah when she asked about how to get rid of me before I discovered that this fool was cheating on me. I didn't know her at all after I read this letter, and I probably still don't. But it's all about you, I said, handing him the paper. However, I knew Sue very well and knew that she was a person of obsessive habits. She always did the same thing, the same way every time. Sometimes it drove me crazy. I also had the feeling that just because she had a new man, she would still do what she always did. He seemed hesitant to take the piece of paper, but I think curiosity got the better of him. He reached out and opened the email. I've been carrying it with me for the last 3 years, and from time to time I've been rereading it and trying to improve my life so that no woman would ever write that about me again. Of all the videotapes and other things that I found out about, this email hurt the most. I think that's why I still carried it with me. This is the same email that I described earlier in my story. Peter read the letter slowly and put it on the table. He pulled out a pen, wrote a note on it very quickly, and, to my surprise, left the restaurant. No looking back, no thanking me, nothing. He had a completely stony face. I bent down and looked at what he had written in her old email. I'm going back to the house for a minute. Please stay here and I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Please wait for me here. For some strange reason, I need to look under the bottom drawer of the dresser in the guest room. I'll be right back. Peter. I knew he'd seen the light, even if he didn't like it. Something told me that I was getting too close to the goal on all 3 issues. The email was the last straw, and I think he needed to see for himself. I left a note in front of Sue's table and left. There was no way I was going to sit in this restaurant with anyone tonight. I went back to the lobby and called my client. They said they were late anyway and wouldn't mind rescheduling the meeting. Shortly before I left, I took another look at the table. Sue returned to the table and looked around for Peter. She sat down, looked through her old email and Peter's note written below. Her face turned white like a ghost's when she recognized her old email and what Peter had written to her. The last time I saw my wife, she was crying so hard that the whole restaurant was looking at her. I really felt sorry for her, but at the same time I didn't care. That was the last time I saw her again. I still wonder if Peter found anything under the dresser drawer. Sue's crying told me that he could do it. End.